name's Mitchell,
I'm Brett.
and this is Real World Recovery, episode 9.
It is.
Oh man,
Yeah.
we've reached the Skywalker saga.
Oh,
I had
man.
to.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, you did.
I did.
You did.
Anyway,
You went there.
So this week was New Year's 2025. First off, like, who would have thought 2025 would be a thing? It seemed for so many years like some far off place on a calendar. And I was promised flying cars and replicators and being able to like vacation on the moon when I was a kid in the 80s. But here we are, and I'm just like a 42, almost 3-year-old has-been.
Could be again.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I don't know, man. It's just like the world isn't changed as much as it has changed. It hasn't. You know what I mean? I guess like it's funny to look. It's funny to look back at the like the things we were talking about in like popular science or like World's Fairs. You know, back in like the 60s and like how different the world was going to be in 50 years, and like here we are 50 years later, like squandering it. I feel like. Anyway. How was your New Year's?
It was good. Yeah. It was, chill.
Under the radar.
Yeah. For the longest time, though, New Year's has never been a exciting thing that I wanted to really do much of, because even during active addiction and active use, like, shy of those first few years when I could legally go out to the bars, I quickly learned that
it's not worth it.
New Year's is the World Series of amateur hour.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's right up there with St. Patty's Day for sure.
Yeah, those are the top two, you know. And so I was always the type of person that wanted to go out to the places that I liked, around the people I knew and enjoyed being around. And on those nights,
there was a million other people who were normally there.
And it was nothing but, who are you? Why are you here? Get out of my space.
Just breeding resentment.
And yeah,
like,
it creates nothing but fiction.
I'm here to get by myself, and like, you guys are harsh and my mellow.
Yeah, it creates nothing but friction, and that is not the environment you want to be in when you add a whole bunch of intoxicants.
I agree. So, I mean, I was always big on the New Year's Eve raves, but I mean, surprise, surprise, right?
Yeah.
But it was very similar, because like, instead of like on a normal weekend where it'd be the same like 100, 200 of you going from party to party, it was all of a sudden, 800 people, 1,000 people, and it was like too packed. You couldn't dance, you know what I mean? And the DJs were getting, so it was like, once the days of the massive were gone, so like, 2006 or so, when everything kind of just disintegrated into, clubland, it wasn't fun anymore. Right. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, you weren't going to like an expo center. You weren't, participating in this giant thing. You were going to a club to stand elbow to elbow with some, drunk girl. And it just wasn't, it is what it is. Maybe part of that is just growing up, but.
Yeah. One thing that was nice about this one was I was able to kind of, I guess you'd call it kind of a 12-step situation. Went to a friend of mine, his situation. He recently got out of treatment and is doing the sober living thing in a small town where
which is woof.
Doesn't know anybody. Has had a hard time kind of integrating and making friends there, and so he's kind of been struggling. He's been, we talk on the phone fairly regularly, and I keep telling him, like, just keep trying, keep going to meetings, and it does get better. Like, and you don't have to tell everybody everything about your life, but it'll be a process, and not everybody's going to be somebody that you're going to be friends with, but you'll make one or two, or, sure. It'll happen. It doesn't happen overnight, just like nothing worth it ever does.
Right.
But, I know that the small towns, especially...
Oh, it's so cliquey.
As somebody who isn't from there, doesn't really know anybody, and then you're coming in
As an addict.
as an addict in recovery and a minority.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So there's a lot of barriers, and so he's understandably feeling anxiety and pressure, I guess. I figured, you know what, New Year's Eve, I went out. I told him, I was like, hey, I'm gonna have some lunch, then I'm gonna come out. I'm gonna pick you up, get you out of small town, and
Mm-hmm.
bring him back into.
Go do some stuffs.
Yeah, we're gonna hang out. Went out there and picked him up and came back into town here and spent the day and went and hit a arcade, played some video games at the old school arcade for
Mm-hmm.
a few hours. Came here and hung out here for a little bit, and
Showed him where all the magic happens.
yeah, yeah. I think overall it was good. You know, he was. I think it was just like, you know, wasn't entirely sure that he was even like he even second guessed whether or not he was fully welcome.
Mm.
I think, and I was like, man, no, like trust me, if you weren't,
I let Mitchell in this apartment.
I was like, but I told him, I was like, if you weren't, I would just tell you.
Right.
Like I'm at a point where I am comfortable enough to say,
Our time here is done.
yeah, like this is where we're, you know, this is the limit, you know.
Sure.
I've got these things to do, and you know, that I guess was kind of the point of what I was trying to get across, was like, it's okay to just be like, here's what I've got bandwidth for, here's what I've got capacity for, and when I'm at my limit, I'm at my limit, and that's okay to just say. So that was good. And then I was in bed by 10 o'clock. So
Nice.
man, I love
I
I love feeling old.
cannot seem to get to bed before 1 a.m. Anyway, yeah. So for my New Year's Eve, I took the kids to the athletic club that I'm a member of, and they had bounce houses like on the indoor soccer field, and then they had this giant like ball drop in the pool area, and so you had like 100 screaming 10 and under children in a pool in a confined space, and then they dropped a bunch of like inflatable like beach balls on them. That was a lot.
Yeah.
That was a lot. I should have brought earplugs. I didn't know what they were, what the plan actually was. You know, I kept asking like the people at the desk, like, so what should I expect as a parent? You know what I mean? And they're like, oh no, it's a great time. They're gonna run around and, you know, la la la. And I'm like, man, that sounds great. Run them all out, then they get back and they're in bed and perfect. I was not. I mean, very rarely I feel like the word bedlam is overused. It doesn't actually apply to what's going on in a situation. This absolutely applies to this situation. That was insanity. And it was loud. It was way louder than I could have ever anticipated. And we're talking about a guy who like danced next to speakers for most of his life. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Holy crap. It like, you know, put the horn to your ear, not the sub, the horn. Put the horn to your ear and just let it fly. And yeah, so my ears were ringing most of the first. So that was delightful. But the kids had fun. I was in bed by 3 a.m.
Yeah.
But that's me. So like that's when I usually go to bed. That's been rough this week. My natural sleep cycle versus the time of day my children get up has been brutal.
Yeah.
But you know, it's for a good cause.
Yeah. Right on.
Yeah, sorry about the lack of shorts, guys. I have not had time. It'll be different over the summer because it always feels like so much pressure to like get everything in. Like, okay, we got to get in Christmas, we got to get in New Year's, we got to get in all this hangout time because we don't see each other that often. And it's like, you know, whether it's real or imaginary, it's just like, it feels like it's 100% go the whole time that they're here on breaks. Whereas like summer, it's like they're here for 3 months.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, there's no rush. Like these are the days we're doing stuff that we've planned. You know, this is my schedule for the week and we're going to, you know, work around all this stuff. It's not so much like drop everything and do it now.
Yeah.
Which, you guys may not know, I have a hard time operating under that sort of that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm handling it with grace for the most part. I appreciate you covering the shit out of my end of responsibilities this past week. You've been amazing for that. I just want everybody to know that Brett's amazing, and I thank you very much. I appreciate you.
No worries, man. That's how we roll.
Speaking of New Year's, I thought this week we could talk about how resolutions are and why people do them and the fallacy of maybe doing it like that. Your thoughts on them, maybe ones that you have committed to yourself in the past. I know a big one was every year you wake up on the first. Back, when you would go out, you'd wake up on the first, or for me, like the second or the third, and like feel like never again. I'm never eating ecstasy again. I'm never taking acid again. I'm never drinking again. I'm never la 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 la. And then 2 weeks goes by, and it's anyway. Were you susceptible to the New Year's resolution in a past life?
I guess. To an extent, but like I never really bought into it a whole lot. I never really saw it work for anybody. Like I don't know anybody who has ever been like, I'm gonna set this big lofty goal for myself, and then by the end of the year was actually still on pace and on mission
to get it done,
to do it, let alone by the end of the year and by New Year's be able to say, I did it. Look at me. So glad I did that New Year's resolution last year.
Right.
Glad I set that goal, because, man. And then, you see all of the self-help folks talking about,
oh my God,
a SMART goal, like
Facebook
specific,
so
measurable,
BS right now.
And all action-oriented, realistic, and time-sensitive, or whatever the acronym is.
You nailed it there.
But it's like, here's the problem with it. All a goal does, and this comes also from the book Atomic Habits, which is a fantastic book if people haven't read it. James Clear, Atomic Habits. My favorite line from this book, he just nails it. He says that a goal, all it does is set a direction. Like, the only thing that it does for you is it sets your bearing, it sets your compass, right? It gives you absolutely no how. Like, you've got absolutely no playbook on how to get there. And there's a thing in there, if you take a flight from New York to San Francisco and you alter the flight path by like 1%, which is like,
you're gonna miss. You're gonna end up in
Seattle.
Like
only like 80 inches or something like that. The angle, you end up in like Tijuana or something. Like, it's like way off. I don't remember the exact.
I went
city,
off north,
but it's like but it's like way off. And so the whole idea of the book is small, very small, like, and the whole idea of atomic is at the very most tiny. An atom is this,
right? Yeah, it's at a fundamental level.
And so you take these very small changes, so they're easy to implement and easy to maintain.
Sure.
And they compound, and they have this massive effect over time.
I feel like that's why a lot of my advice to people in recovery is just do the next right thing. Because it's not overwhelming. As long as like the decision you're making is good for how you're trying to live, then it eventually adds up until you're like a good, well-rounded person.
Well, and here's kind of why, for me, I don't really set a resolution in the traditional sense of like setting these goals for myself, like, because they're not external goals, like, because I don't have any control over the external.
Yeah.
You know, I can't say like I want to achieve 5,000 subscribers, or I want like, you know, to get some job that pays X number of dollars, or, you know, I don't have control over that. What I do have control over is I can make sure that the content I'm putting out is the best that I can, and I can improve the quality of content. I can improve the consistency with which I'm doing it. I can learn more about what
How
I'm
to
doing,
do it.
and
Sure.
I can teach myself new skills as far as being able to be more employable in a certain field, or, you know, those kind of things. When we look at the difference between somebody who achieves their goal and somebody who has the same goal but fails, they both had the same goal.
Right.
The goal is irrelevant. They both had the same goal.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
One had a plan and did it.
The systems.
Sure.
Like, so get rid of the
Of course, it comes back to systems, people.
get rid of the goal. If get rid of the goal entirely
Sure.
and focus on the systems, the daily practices, the habits
That gets you where you want to
that
be.
get you to that,
Sure.
and focus on those behaviors and love that process, and then the success becomes a byproduct. Achieving the goal happens once, but becoming that person that achieves the goal, that is then routine.
Right.
And
Well, I think a good example of that in my life is like, yeah, so I made a decision to live in a much healthier way, you know, last April. And there wasn't like I say, oh, my target weight, but I'm just going by like, you know, what the medical definition of a person my height should weigh by versus percent of body fat. So I'm just going by like the medical definition of like what my target weight should be. And you know, I hit that, but that wasn't like my goal. My goal was to live healthier and to eat healthier. And I knew that by exercising and by eating healthier, the byproduct would be losing the weight.
yeah,
And it has been,
yeah,
you know? And then when I hit that like 175-pound mark, I was like, kind of like, what now? And I'm like, well, bro, you're not cut yet. Like, just keep what like there's no purpose to change because I feel better. I sleep better. You know, I don't feel like crap as often. And, you know, I thoroughly enjoy working out. So it's like, you know, there wasn't a goal except for to be healthier.
yeah.
And so, you know, it
when
just
we
became
start seeing ourselves as the type of person
who is healthy.
who does those things, then those behaviors,
Become easy.
those habits become easier to do. It's harder to say no to them because I see myself as a person who, let's say if it's exercise, I'm a person who exercises, not I want to lose 20 pounds.
Right.
If instead it's I am a person who exercises.
Right.
Then that's the person who, you know.
And it very much was that way for me. It was like, okay, I'm not going to live like this anymore. You know, it
Right.
wasn't like, well, I'm going to do this because I want to be better. It was more like, well, I mean, it was because I want to be better, but it was like, you know, it wasn't about necessarily the weight loss. It was about the standard of living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the weight loss was a byproduct of that. So
Yeah,
it's like, yeah.
One of the other things that he talks about in the book to help with this is I believe he calls it like habit stacking. So taking these new habits that go along with that activity or that goal, and tying it in with something that you already do, right? So like, let's say it's stretching in the morning, right?
Which you should all do. Oh
Well,
my God.
let's say that's what it is. So for me, something I do every morning make coffee, right?
Sure.
So while my coffee's brewing,
You do stretches.
yeah.
It's a good plan.
So if that's so like if I know I'm gonna make my coffee, set out right next to where the coffee is, set out that yoga mat or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's right there. It's easy. I don't have to go anywhere and get the thing. I don't.
And what you're waiting around for the coffee anyway.
Exactly.
Instead of jumping on Facebook, just get down on your knees and
Exactly.
stretch.
If the thing is, I want to read more. Okay. Well then, wherever I go to sit down and drink my coffee,
Mm-hmm.
set my book there. You know.
Yeah.
So it's
instead of flipping
already
on the
there.
TV, you're reading.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hide the remote. Make it harder to do the thing you don't want to do.
Yeah.
And just little things like that subconsciously make it easier to do the things that you want to do and harder to do the things you want to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a hard time with getting on social media right away in the morning, well, then first thing you do when you hide your phone somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, make it harder to get to the phone. Make it an inconvenience to get to the phone.
I do the for the phone first thing in the morning. I just do the brute force. You're better than that, Mitchell.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely see that. Like, if I don't have bad food in my apartment anymore. Like, you've known me long enough that you remember when I ate pizza and cookies every day.
Yeah.
And I just, it doesn't come into my house. And then, I ended up making, because I make this really like protein dense meal for like post workout, and it's like got like 2 different kinds of beans in it, and then it's got like shredded pork, and it's quinoa and all this. And my kids are like, "Oh, that smells so good, let me have some." And then they ended up eating it for dinner, and I was like, "So you guys like think this is good? Like, well, we can do this as a meal like once a week. I don't know that it's something that you should eat every day as a child, because you need, like, you're not taking the other supplements, to get the type of nutrition you need out of it. But I mean, I'm fine with you guys eating some of it. But just changing that to being, that's the thing in my fridge, so that when I come home from a workout and I'm starving, that's what's there. You know what I mean? High in protein, got some simple carbs in it to replenish some energy, and that's the good healthy way of doing it. Whereas if I had frozen chicken patties in there, I'd be like, man, I'm starving. It sounds good, a frozen chicken patty.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because it's also easy and accessible, and
yeah.
Yeah.
And so you just don't have it there.
Right. Make it difficult to
Mm-hmm.
have access to it, and all of a sudden
It's easier to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I feel like I said last week, I've stolen exactly 0 cars since I stopped drinking, and it's like, well, it's a lot harder to make that decision. Anyway.
But that's the difference between that consistency and maintaining that kind of steadfast approach versus that big jolt of motivation.
Yeah.
And then it falls off because we don't stick with it because
it gets hard.
We don't see the results. So there's also the expectation is we start off and we have all this motivation, like, yeah, I'm going to do this thing. And we think that the results are going to be linear.
Oh, it's not.
And it's a very slow process. It's a compounding effect.
I don't think I actually lost any weight for like the first month of my habit change. You know what I mean? And then it definitely hits a plateau where you flip from burning fat to building muscle. If I had focused on weight loss as the goal of, my journey down healthiness, or whatever you want to call it, I would have felt like a failure, like many times over, as like you hit certain spots where it's like, man, I just can't lose this 2 pounds. Well, you can't lose that 2 pounds because, you're building muscle. Muscle weighs more than fat. Like, I mean, in a perfect world, you'd hit the like target weight for scrawny and then come back and weigh similar, just stacked. And like, not for me personally, because my body type doesn't support that, and I'm in my 40s. But that's like, people got to understand that if your perspective is just focused on this macro concept, you're never gonna do the micro things that it takes to get to the, the overall goal.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm gonna go work out after this, and I'm scared of how busy the gym is gonna be
Yeah.
because there's gonna be 100 people in there that aren't normally in there
Right.
because they feel guilty that they got fat over the holidays, and all they had to do was not eat all those cookies and have all that eggnog, and then maybe they, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to do my best not to resent them for being there because, I mean, maybe it will stick. Maybe it is the thing that changes their life. But it's like, I found that when I make a life changing decision and actually like stick to that decision, it's never based on an event like New Year's. It's never based on a hangover. I didn't quit drinking hungover. I quit drinking sober. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's different for everybody, but ultimately it is going to come down to, I think, for most people, a much smaller change because that's what is going to be easier to stick to. And before just jumping right into the gym, I think
mean,
if somebody wants to take up exercising for this
Yeah.
example, maybe start first with putting out your running shoes and your workout clothes and just getting up early and putting those on.
And taking a walk.
Skip the walk even. Just get up early, put those on, and get in the habit of doing that. Then once that's part of your routine, once you've gotten in the habit of getting up early, put on your shoes and your workout clothes. Now that that's part of your routine, now go out, go for a walk around the block. Now that that's part of the routine, now maybe go for more than a walk around the block and maybe a tenth of a mile.
I mean, I
You got the whole year.
I started by walking, and I would highly suggest that anybody who is like overweight and like very out of shape, just start by walking around that block because that's how I did it.
Walk around the living room.
I just started walking around the block, and at first that sucked. That's how out of shape I was, and then I was like, well,
But
now I need to.
why do something that sucks? Do something that doesn't suck.
Right,
Because we need to do things that we get a reward for. The problem with our brain chemistry is that the dopamine response gets triggered from the bad behaviors. We get the instant gratification and the dopamine response from bad behaviors.
I also think that there is a very real danger that if you set it too small, like walking around your living room, that you're going to be like, well, this is good enough.
It doesn't get smaller than the atomic level.
I just think you can't, like, I get small, but not like that small. I feel like in this context, like in other things, yes, I get it. But I feel like in this context, like putting on your shoes isn't enough.
Whatever works for somebody. Like,
Yeah.
get in the habit of doing something towards that goal.
Yeah.
Whatever it looks like.
My little brother on his row machine.
Like, it doesn't matter. It's starting the process of building that new habit.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you keep building
Yeah, the things
and
that...
you keep stacking on that habit, like, that's the whole idea. It's not like, oh, you got your shoes on, that's good, do that all year, you're exercising now.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point. The point is, if that's what it takes to get that process started, then you start stacking on that. Little rewards, even if it's just like putting an X on a calendar, because that's called linking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, get an old school calendar and start putting an X on the calendar for every day that you did the thing in that habit. And then you start making a chain. And subconsciously, putting that X on there hits the dopamine receptor. And we don't want to break that chain. Even if one day you're sick as a dog and you've gotten to the point where you're out and you're like running a mile, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you physically just don't have it in you to run the mile, but you still get up, you put on the shoes, put on your workout clothes, and you go for a walk. You still maintained that habit, right? So you don't break that chain.
Sure.
you're still rewarding yourself. You're still rewarding that positive behavior, and you're still maintaining the link in the chain. That's the whole idea, is you're maintaining that habit, you're maintaining that discipline throughout the process. And it's interesting because, I mean, effectively we're fooling the worst parts of our psyche, and you know, things that are ingrained in us through millions of years of evolution that actually have kept us alive as a species. But you know, now it's like that's also the things that keep us from developing further in, you know, our personal lives, as far as like things that we want to achieve. It's, you know, those lower, you know, the animal brain parts of us that, you know, kind of.
I like how we separate ourselves from animals like we aren't animals. It's a very strange thing to me.
I mean, we are.
I can't trick myself into it like that. There has to be like a there's, for me, it's always just like something snaps and everything falls into place, and then it's not like there's not a choice, it becomes compulsion. Do you know what I mean? It's just, that's what it is. This is what I do now. I would my next venture, so I quit smoking like 2 years ago now, almost. I woke up this morning, and the first time since I started vaping, I can like feel it.
Uh-huh.
And that's gotta go. Which means vaping's gotta go, which you know, I knew was going to be an eventuality.
Yeah, I can tell I forgot to put on my nicotine patch today because I've been like,
Yeah.
Those actually have worked really well for me. That is one of the things for me, is for this year, is to focus on making a actual like plan towards
Nicotine cessation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I had my last cigarette November 11th, 2021.
Dang, it's like that for you?
Mm-hmm. I remember my clean date. I remember my last cigarette.
Mine was sometime in January, like 2 years ago.
I
was like, this tastes
that,
like
man.
shit, and it's fucking cold. I'm over it.
Yeah. The cigarette was kind of the same thing on a lesser scale than it was for using, but like it was one of those days where I just took the first drag off of it, and I was like,
I took 2 drags off it.
This is awful.
I'm like, I'm done.
So, yeah, I just was like, this is terrible. I'm done.
I did the same thing.
Like, I just decided right there. I was like, nope. And it was like the second or the third one out of a pack, and I gave my pack to somebody else I was in treatment with. I'm like, here you go, man. I'm done. Like, and that was it.
I had it was the first one out of there, and I have those 19 cigarettes still in my freezer just in case. Which is silly, I know, because they're 2 years old and probably ruined. But
or it was.
Yeah, if you were in treatment, that was like almost 4 years ago.
I wasn't. No, I wasn't in treatment. Because I got clean January.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're just about to hit 4 years, aren't you?
January 2021. So November, was I volunteering at that point? Because I remember giving them to some. I must have been volunteering, because I remember I was at the treatment. I must have been volunteering by then. Fuzzy memories, man. That first year.
It's probably fine.
Pause.
Yeah, I mean, I did not believe in that when I went to treatment, but then I definitely believed in it.
Yeah, that whole first year is just like, huh?
Well, you know, I got a few months
like,
after treatment, and then I was like, and then I got back into whatever, and then when I got here and I finally like, okay, this is it, I'm done. You're not aware when it's happening to you that that's what's happening to you. It's one of those things that you see in retrospect.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh man, like that was really, really kind of
Yeah.
like mentally and physically hard. Anyway.
Yeah. But no, it you know, I think the biggest thing, not just with New Year's, but just with all of sticking with recovery, and it happens in early recovery just as much as it does when you start getting, a few months and then into a few years, is maintaining that discipline and that staying vigilant, because we see too often, I think, in all of the different, that's going to bother me.
The shorter chair is not as comfortable, but I want to put my legs under the desk. So that's very much a me problem.
Well, the OCD is a me problem.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's fine. I'm more than happy to fix the desk. so that your eye doesn't start tweaking.
It's like,
yeah. It's like, bro, what are you doing? Like, you know it can't be like that, Mitchell. What are you doing? No, it's like one of those situations where, you can't hear other people's thoughts until you can.
but for real though, it's getting back to it. It's like you see it all too often, especially like a few years in. People get 2, 3, 4 years in, and I'm acutely aware of it being coming up on 4 years.
Yeah.
You see people start to get complacent. They start not being as active in the community and not going to meetings and not being of service and not, doing the things. And they kind of fall off and get, for lack of a better word, it's complacent. And
yeah.
Next thing you know, something happens, whether it's death of a loved one or
breakup,
or loss of a job or whatever the life event is. Or maybe it's not even some big event. Maybe it's just death by 1,000 cuts, but like just the straw that broke the camel's back. Just, Roomba got stuck on something, and then there's a drain got clogged up, and then my boss keeps calling me, and then, oh my God, and just everything with life keeps piling up. And next thing you know, it's...
that alcohol's looking awfully tasty.
Yeah, just flip desk. I'm over it.
Yeah.
And
none of it matters. Get real nihilistic about it.
Right. And they're right back out. I hear the stories all too often, and I know I'm not immune. And it's scary to think. Yeah, because
I can't imagine like opiates again, like it's a death sentence.
Yeah.
It's 100% a hard death sentence after you've had 3 years clean. Like you are 100% going to OD, if not on your first shot, on your second or your third. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah.
Because nothing's real out there anymore.
Yep.
So, I can't, I can't see a world where like I want to go back into rolling that dice.
Yep.
Like I was fortunate enough to, not have to worry too much about that, doing what I was doing. But man, if I haven't seen it take so many people's lives.
Yep.
It was people with time.
Yeah, and that's usually more often who gets the worst of it is the folks that have some time, because they're so far detached from it. And yeah, so instead have doubled down, on staying committed. And that's why I feel very fortunate that things have happened the way they have for me. And, with the way things lined up with the job basically giving me...
the middle finger?
No, not so much, but kind of leading me in this direction. And
sure.
The rational choice for me was this.
Yeah.
Now it's been fantastic because it's recommitted me to being more of service and being more active in my own recovery and being able to be more present in my relationship and be more present in other folks' recovery and
in your own life.
Yeah. And also,
I mean, because that job, if nothing else, was a giant practice in dissociation.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it also made it very difficult to have any bandwidth left for
Interpersonal
wanting to learn.
relationships. Yeah.
Like it required so much brain power, and not because it was a hard job,
No, but you have to
but
read every single person. You have to
because I
like,
had to mentally be
yeah.
engaged that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I couldn't check out because of the nature of the job.
Yeah, I mean, I was checked out, but a different way because it's just a different part of my brain that's on. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It wasn't like,
yeah. It wasn't like
it
I
felt
was
very empty at the end of the day.
right. It wasn't that I was using a lot of the like learning part of my
Yeah,
brain.
exactly. It was repetition.
But yeah, it wasn't just data entry,
No, and
for example.
it felt very similar to me, to like when I was working in the screw machine shop as a very young man, where it's like once you understand how the machine works, you just run the machine. And
Right.
so like that's kind of what I mean about like dissociating or like kind of turning my brain off, because I know what to say to people. Like I can take whatever tone they're inputting into me and I put it into the system, and then I make whatever part that it is we're trying to make here.
Yeah.
And it was very, it got to the point at the end where I had to make myself make every single phone call. Every single phone call I had to make myself make it. And that is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's exhausting. You know, I didn't do much outside of my, exercising. Like that's all I did. All I did outside of work was exercise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So because I wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah. So, I'm grateful that now I'm able to spend more time, not only in the recovery realm, but reading and learning and
Well, I'm with you. I just bit the bullet, and I'm gonna go back to school.
yeah.
I'm gonna learn something now that I know like what I'm good at and what I enjoy doing. I'm going to go get that degree because I'm at an age where, because of my life experience, I'll be taken seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be like some 24-year-old kid fresh off of the presses with that degree. I'm gonna be like a lived experience person who now has the clinical knowledge to do something
Yeah.
helpful,
Exactly.
because I got anecdotal evidence all day, or
Right.
answers or whatever. Blah,
Yeah.
blah.
And going back to what you said in the beginning too, it's these things haven't changed much in thousands of years.
No.
Like the Stoics talked about it too.
Yeah,
Like,
we're all in this boat together, and we all have been since the beginning.
yeah, it's a human thing to not stick with it. So anything we can do to keep ourselves consistent and stay disciplined and that goes a long way. And it's those little decisions, those little right decisions repeated consistently that compound and big results happen. And it just takes time. And so
Indeed, it does.
and that's the keeping our side of the street clean, I think, is what really helps maintain that focus, and again, keeping the focus on what we have control over, because the instant we start wasting our time worrying about somebody.
But I like worrying about other people.
I mean,
No, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's like, if I want to live healthier, then I need to live healthier.
yeah,
Me telling my kids they should eat less sugar, I can't make them eat less sugar, especially at their mom's house. But what I can do is be like, hey, you guys see where I was and where I am now. Consider it.
yeah,
You can make that decision.
I mean, I think from a parenting perspective, you've got a little bit more leeway there than
Oh yeah, when
you
they're
do
like
on, say
They were like, Dad, how come it's just plain cornflakes and Cheerios for breakfast? And I'm like, because you don't need all that sugar.
because that's what we've got.
Because that's what's here.
Yeah.
Eat it or don't. Well, Dad, why do I have to have an apple instead of a cookie? Because that's what you can have.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not hungry, don't eat it. Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. That's what we've got here.
Yep.
You know.
Get excited for this summer because you're going to be on a mostly raw diet, kids.
When you want to go buy groceries, you can go buy the things you want to buy.
Which I did. When I got a paper route, I remember I think it was like 11 or 12. I might have even been 11 because in Wisconsin here you can have a paper route like young.
Yeah.
And I was making enough money to buy like a donut and a Coke after school when I was in like I would have been 6th grade maybe. And I was like, this is awesome, because my mom was very much a like puffed wheat. There's no sugar. There's no processed sugar in the house at all. Like honey is the one sweetener we get to use, and it's only on Saturdays. And like, you know what I mean? And I used to kind of resent her for it. And so like any chance I could, I'd like go have caffeine and like donuts, or I'd go and get myself a Hardee's breakfast on Saturday morning when I was done running my route, because I wasn't allowed to eat those things.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm at the age where my kids are going to be moving into a similar age, and I want to make them eat the same diet because I know how bad it is, because I spent all those years eating that BS. And now I'm like, oh my God, I was eating myself into the grave, and the food has gotten worse for you than it was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is like definitely worse for you. At least back then they were using sugar. Now everything's high fructose. I'm just going to stop now because I could go on an endless rant about it. But it's like, yeah, man, I feel like turning it back into a treat is, a necessity. I have been beating myself up because, the kids have been here, and I ate lasagna, and I ate some pizza, and I ate Popeye's chicken in the span of a week. And that is not typical for how I've been eating. And I haven't been making up for it by spending extra time in the gym because the kids are here. I don't want to like go spend 3 hours working out because I ate 1,200 calorie meal, and I know that it's hard. I was telling my oldest daughter, I'm like, well, I have to go right back to not eating this stuff, because if you guys leave and I eat this stuff again right away, then I reversed the habit. I've regressed back into my old habits, and we can't have that. And so it's like yesterday they're having burgers for lunch. I mean, they're homemade, so it's not like it's crappy fast food burger or whatever. But I was like, no, I'm gonna not do that. I'm gonna have a shake and then have my protein dense meal for dinner, and I'm not gonna do this because it's too easy.
Yeah.
It's too easy to go back, and that goes right back to your like people falling back off the wagon. It's just like, well, too easy.
Yeah.
And so this summer, when I have them all summer again, it's only going to be food I eat. And like, the weekends, we'll do something special. I'm sure I'll take them out. I mean, I usually do one cheat meal a week, and so that's probably fine. But like, I'm not going to make it so that every single day I'm being tempted by crappy food and rant. I've been on Reddit way too much here lately. Just throwing it out there.
Cool.
Yep. That's it. I got nothing more. That's how Reddit works. I think it's weird as a society that we've designated this one day to just be like, okay, this is the day you change. And I get it, new year, new you. But here's the thing, folks. If you want to make a significant change in your life, you don't have to wait for a special day. Be like Brett and I with smoking cigarettes. You just, okay, that's it, I'm done. And then start doing it.
The first step is making the decision.
Mm-hmm.
The goal sets the direction, and then start developing the systems, and that gives you the how, and then make those things as easy and bite-sized as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Stack them with things you're already doing.
And if you need help doing these things, reach out to somebody who does these things either professionally or in their lives already, and ask for help.
Or grab the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Like,
# not an ad.
No, not at all. It's just a great book. But like, and set up your environment. Set yourself up for success. Arrange your environment with the things that will help you achieve that. If it's, like I was saying, if it's reading, set your book in a place where you're gonna be when you want to read,
So
that it's not an inconvenience to get to the book. So that
I do that with my gym bag subconsciously.
yeah,
Yeah, it's actually like in the way of my bathroom door, so that like every time I go to the bathroom, like I rub my foot on it on the way in and then rub my other foot on it on the way out.
yeah,
So it's like a constant reminder of like, hey bro,
right,
that iron isn't gonna pump itself.
yeah,
That tread ain't gonna mill itself.
yeah. If you want to drink more water, set a water bottle out
Yeah.
or multiple water bottles out in places where you are likely to be
Yeah.
regularly, and so that
I
it's
don't have a
easy to
problem
get
drinking
to.
water, but yeah, I could see.
like
Yeah.
just things that subconsciously will assist you in making it an easier habit to start and maintain. That's a great way to start getting into that habit, and then you maintain that environment, make it easy, make it accessible, stack it with other habits you already have and already consistently do, and bada bing, bada boom.
Yes, sir.
You know, a lot of it just comes down to like that mindset. For me, is one of the most fundamental ones, and it sounds like you did this, and for me, it was a thing that changed within me when I started learning about money. It was I viewed myself as a person who was good with money, even before I knew much about it. Like it was just a mindset shift. Like I wanted to be a person who was smart with money, who knew how to manage money, how to make money work for me. And so I started doing the things that would get me to that place. So I started reading the books. I started watching videos from the people who wrote those books. I started then following their advice. I started doing those things and started taking their advice and started practicing those habits, and eventually got to a point where I was a person who was making smart money choices. And but that viewing myself as that person made it so that it was very difficult to make a bad choice with money, because I viewed myself as a person who made smart choices with money. So impulse buys were a lot harder to allow myself to make, because it was like, but I'm not that person. That's a key shift, is rather than just saying, I want to get out of debt, I want to be the type of person who
Is debt free.
I want to, I want to have a brand new car. I want to be the type of person who has good enough credit and enough money to be able to make the down payment to be able to get a new car, right? Like, I want to be this person. And then all of the things that I do, all of the choices I make, all of the actions I take, each one of those is a vote for that person. And
Yeah, it sounds exactly like what I did with my fitness.
exactly. And so I think those are things we did without really like having the words for it, right?
Yeah.
Like both of us did, like, but then I read and it's like, oh yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah.
He literally described it that way, and I was like, oh yeah, that's basically what I did. But it, like, that I think was for me like really what made staying disciplined about my money habits that much easier. Was I viewed myself, even before I was there, I viewed myself as that person, as the type of person who made smart decisions with money.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't exactly know everything about money yet, but like,
I
that's who I wanted to be.
a little off subject, but I feel like the people in our country need to quit thinking of themselves as billionaires because they're not.
Well, I'm not in the business of
Yeah,
telling other people what they need to do.
I mean,
It's not
okay.
worth my time. I don't have any control over it. So
I'm just frustrated by it. But that was last week's topic. Or was it 2 weeks ago? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I think that, the moral of the story is you can change your life any day of the week. It doesn't have to be the first of the new year. It doesn't have to be the 1st of January. It doesn't have to be, it can be any day. It can be any moment. It can be when you open up your eyes in the morning, or it can be right before you go to bed at night. Anything, any moment can be that moment. I admire like people's desire to do something different with their lives. But I think like what we were trying to talk about today was like a better way of going about it so that it becomes meaningful change and not just,
yeah, how to make it stick.
not just another like 2 weeks in the gym because you feel guilty,
Yeah.
And feeling guilty, like if you feel guilty about something that's going on in your life that you want to change, like the guilt is not going to be enough of a catalyst to put you over the edge of actually making a meaningful change. It's just not. I don't think in the history of any of us as a species anybody has been guilted into behaving in a certain way.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
it's
shame doesn't work.
the same
Why
as
are you going to shame yourself?
it's the same as saying I'm sorry every time you get drunk. Like, don't say I'm sorry. Show me with changed behavior. you
Yeah.
know? And it, how do you do that? How do you make it stick? Well, make the decision and start making some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you make those changes stick? Well, we figure out how to start making those small, incremental, next right decisions.
Yep.
And be accountable to somebody. If you need to reach out to us. Get on Discord.
That's true.
Let us know what you're working on, and maybe
I've seen some new faces in Discord. Thank you.
maybe there's some other people that want to work on the same thing. Get together, share some wins throughout the year. Like that's that dopamine release. Share those little victories. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's an important part of it. So it's all that stuff. So
Well, fantastic.
yeah.
Got any plans for this week?
I'm continuing to work on editing all of the audio to get all of our
Past podcasts up as actual
past podcasts up on all of the different platforms that you can get podcasts on.
Which again, I sincerely appreciate, and I'm sorry that having my children has been
do not
a real drag on
apologize.
my ability to sit at my
Do
computer
not apologize
for 8
for
hours
having
a
your
day.
kids, man. It's all good. Team effort, buddy. Team effort. I'm just glad we got it figured out, and it's been fun to learn the process. So
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
It's funny. I come in here today, and Brett's like, "Hey, I found this new piece of audio editing software that I think you might be interested in." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. No, I've been using that for years, and I mean years. I've been using that to remove noise from my DJ mixes, so it's kind of funny. I'm very familiar with the program. It's free out there. It's called Audacity, and it's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I miss Creative Media Source, but it went away with the sound cards.
Yeah.
Because you just don't need all that extra power unless you're like recording 16 tracks at a time, and I'm not. So
Right.
anyway, I take the kids back on Sunday morning, and be bittersweet. And I'm gonna be hopefully working on my aunt and uncle's basement all next week, making some money.
Cool.
Yeah. It's been a very long holiday season, and I'm at the end of my bandwidth for it.
Yeah.
So,
Good timing then.
yeah, you're gonna make it through a couple more days here,
Yeah.
before I can just hang out in the darkness for a couple days, which is kind of what I really need.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as we always do about this time, if you've made it this far into the episode,
Should probably leave us a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and if you want the AdSense gods to come through your phone and let you know every time we drop a new piece of content, go ahead and hit that notification bell.
yep.
And then share with your friends or anyone you know who may enjoy this type of content of two guys sitting in a room talking about what makes them tick in recovery. Because we can't do it without you guys.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we can sit here and talk without the microphones and cameras, but it's far less engaging for you guys.
Yeah. Hop into Discord.
Hop in a Discord. The Facebook page is up and humming these days.
And if you're listening to this on any of the other podcast sites,
feel free to leave us a review.
Yeah, rate us on Apple, on iTunes.
Yeah,
or
please leave a review.
Spotify or Amazon. That would help
Let
the show.
let us know what we can do different, we can do better. What you like, what you don't like.
But
I'm okay. I'm a big boy. I can handle it.
We very much appreciate your support, and
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.